the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Chasing That Paper, presented by VegasInsider.com. And oh, baby, we got to face some music right off the bat here. So yesterday, a day where I absolutely loved the board, ended up being the worst performance in the history of Chasing That Paper. I went 1-6 with my picks yesterday. That's a recipe for a bad night of sleep. It is a recipe for crippling your bankroll too. You know, we're having a good month of March with profits up in smoke. So yeah, 1-6 yesterday. A couple close losses. A couple that weren't close at all. What the hell is going on with the Boston Celtics? One of their worst performances of the season. They got some ugly losses as double-digit favorites, both the Wizards and the Rockets here in recent weeks. But hey, in this business, you got to have a short memory. So we do live to bet another day. That day is today. We will look to bounce back, and we will look to strike with the precision of a boa constrictor sinking its teeth deep throat of a mongoose. Just on me today, hopefully to give us a little bit of help here. My guy Kevin Rogers joining. Let's bring him in here. Down there in South Florida. Kevin, fresh off of a 3-0 performance last week on the show. And there you have it. Hurricane Superfan. Now, I believe Tito put that together. Tito, Superfan should be 2 words, I believe. But Kevin, are you excited being down there in Florida with the 2 Florida teams here in the Final Four?
Joe, it's good to be back on with you, and I'm not a Hurricane super fan, so thank you, Tito. My school, Florida State, is not in the tournament. They didn't do anything this year, but I am happy that Miami is in the Final Four. Also, FAU, who for years was known as just kind of a commuter school in Boca Raton, and yet they have made it all the way to the Final Four, is absolutely amazing. It's a bigger story than Miami actually making it to the Final Four, but for both these teams in the region to be there, it is very good. We root for them. Hopefully one of them makes the Final Four or to the championship on Monday, if not both of them, but it should be pretty fun. You know, I think we get tired of seeing Purdue and Kentucky and Duke and Kansas and all these teams. You got some fresh teams in the Final Four, so we're looking forward to it.
Fun and fresh. So a lot to get into today. Kevin has his best bet for the Final Four. I have 4 total picks across the NBA and the NHL. And Kevin won't be with us tomorrow, but guess what? Tomorrow is opening day of the Major League Baseball season. Kevin has a couple spots that he likes there. So we're going to let Kevin hit leadoff. Kevin, your best bet here for the Final Four. What are you looking at?
Well, first, Joe, we will look at the opening game in the Final Four on Saturday from Houston. San Diego State taking on FAU, and I've been on FAU the last few rounds against Tennessee and Kansas State, but I'm going to jump off the Owl bandwagon here. I'm going to back San Diego State as a short favorite coming up on Saturday night in that first game. And, yeah, understandably, this is not the sexiest game that you'll see in the Final Four, but still, San Diego State, an elite defensive team. They've allowed 64 or less in each of their 4 tournament wins. San Diego State, their best win came against Alabama in the Sweet 16, knocking out the top-seeded Crimson Tide, who could have been in the Final Four. Could have been a championship-type team, but San Diego State shut them down in the second half. Then they beat Creighton in the Elite Eight. I know there was questions about the foul at the end, but still I thought it was a foul. And San Diego State hit the go-ahead free throw. They advanced. And you look at FAU and the Owls, a great story for them. They're going to the American Conference next year. They're going to move up in the world. We'll see if Dusty May, their coach, leaves to go somewhere else or he stays put. But they beat Memphis in the first round on a late shot. They avoided Purdue in the second round. They beat Fairleigh Dickinson. Again, that was pretty close, actually, in the second half. And then Kansas State and Tennessee in the last 2. Those games were back and forth in the second half until FAU pulled away. But the Aztecs, 6-0 against the spread their last 6. They've won 14 of 15. Both teams are playing very well. Obviously, everyone at this point is playing well. But I'm ready to jump off the FAU bandwagon. I think San Diego State takes care of business here, and they will win and move on to the championship game on Monday, Joe.
It's San Diego State. Okay, on to tonight's action. I'm going to rip off 4 picks in a row here. And we're going to start things off in Indiana. The Milwaukee Bucks are in town. Big favorite, -12. Don't be scared of the big number, homie. Give me the Bucks to cover in this one because we got a perfect storm brewing in Indiana here tonight. This one could get ugly. No Tyrese Halliburton, Giannis, and Holiday set to return for the Bucks, who are in an incredible revenge spot here versus the Pacers, who came into Milwaukee around 2 weeks ago as a 12-point underdog and beat the Bucks by 16 points. They'll be out for blood, and they won't take it easy on a Pacers team that's seeing a lot of ugly losses adding up here. Losses of 23, 13, and 25 in their last 3 games. 2 other losses of 20 points in recent weeks for them as well. And the Bucks usually do smack them around pretty good. 12-4 ATS in their last 16 versus the Pacers. Advantages all over the court, most notably defense and rebounding. 5th versus 29th in points allowed per 100 possessions over the last 10 games. Pacers are getting annihilated in the paint and allowing a ton of points off turnovers. 4th versus 24th in rebounds per 100 possessions, favoring the Milwaukee Bucks. Give me the Bucks to take care of business in that one. Next up, we're off to New York City, where the Miami Heat are in town. Second game of a back-to-back for Miami, who really let us down there last night. Thanks to Jimmy Butler for not playing. Anyhow, my best bet for this game between the Heat and the Knicks, I'm going to take the Knicks to cover the first quarter spread, coming in at -1.5. So this has been a season-long sweet spot for the Knicks. They are 24-13-1 ATS in the first quarter at home. They've outscored the Heat in all 3 of their matchups this season in the first quarter. Miami is seeing some awful starts on the road. They are 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 first quarters on the road, where they have a -6.4 point margin, average a league low 23.8 points in the opening frame at home. In this same span, the Knicks are 3rd in first quarter scoring at 32.5 points. And big edge in this one will be on the glass and the paint as well here. Rebounding remains a major issue for the Miami Heat. This is a matchup between teams ranked 5th in the Knicks and 27th in the Heat in rebounds per 100 possessions over the last 10 games. Give me the Knicks in the opening frame with the Heat in town. All right, probably the sexiest, the most intriguing game of the night in the NBA has the Minnesota Timberwolves in Phoenix to take on the Suns. I'm going to take a shot on the dog in this one. Ho, ho, ho. Give me the Timberwolves +5.5 points. So check them out as an underdog. This is a team that plays up to the competition. They're on an 18-6 against the spread run as an underdog. 3 straight outright wins as a road underdog as well versus the Kings, Warriors, and Knicks. Also 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 games as a dog of 4 or more points. They're at full strength too. Do not forget about that. Of course, the story of the night in the NBA is Kevin Durant making his return to the Suns lineup, but the T-Wolves have a squeaky clean injury report as well, with Karl Anthony Towns set to play in his 3rd game back since returning from injury. And this is a pretty close matchup from a statistical perspective, especially when you consider that KD might be slightly eased back in action. However, one significant edge Mini could have is at the free throw line. They're 4th in free throw attempt rate over the last 10 games. Phoenix dead last in opponent free throw attempt rate in that span. Some dirty defense by the Suns. Give me the Wolves to give the Suns a game tonight in Phoenix. And I'll wrap things up on the ice. We got a fun one tonight up in Toronto, where the Florida Panthers are in town. High total for this one, 7 goals. Not high enough. Give me the over on this one. These teams have played twice here in 2023. Already 17 total goals scored in those 2 matchups. The high danger chances will be flying in this one. 3rd versus 6th, and high danger chances 4. Over the last 10 games, Panthers continue to get a ton of shots on net, ranking 2nd shots in that 10-game sample size. At least 7 goals is the absolute norm in Panthers games. 8 of their last 9 games have seen 7 or more pucks get in the net. This is a great spot for each power play. 9th and 10th most penalty minutes in the NHL for these teams over the last 10. Toronto, one of the league's top power plays. Florida, one of the league's worst penalty kills. And Sergei Bobrovsky expected to get the start here for Florida. He's getting absolutely shelled He's allowed 4 or more in 5 of his last 7 starts, including 5 goals allowed, 3 of those games. Samsonov likely to be back between the pipes here for Toronto. Let's hope for some rust. He's been off for over a week now. Give me over 7 between the Panthers and the Maple Leafs. All right, Major League Baseball opening day. We cannot wait. Kevin, the honor is yours. The first pick for the 2023 Major League Baseball season. What are you looking at? What do you have locked in?
Joe, I'm going to look at, of course, you guessed it, the Texas Rangers as they're hosting the defending National League champion Philadelphia Phillies tomorrow in Arlington. And I'm going to back the Rangers here as a favorite. Jacob deGrom makes his Texas debut. As long as that oblique stays in place, then he should be all right. You're going to get a very cheap price on deGrom compared to the other starts he's going to make this year. And Texas, I'll put it to you this way, Joe, they're trying. They're trying to get better. They're in a tough division with Houston, who's almost a lock to win that division every year. Seattle has improved a lot. The Angels, you have 2 of the best players in the league, and you wonder if they can get any better. We know Oakland's kind of a dumpster fire. But Texas can only go up from here. And Jacob deGrom making his Texas debut, he has pitched well against the Phillies going back to his days with the Mets, and he's opposed by Aaron Nola, who is obviously, an elite pitcher with him starting on opening day, but he's not a great underdog, though. When you look at some of Nola's numbers, he struggled in that dog role last year. Also, this Philly team without Bryce Harper, he's injured. Rhys Hoskins out for the year with the ACL tear. I'm not a huge fan of this Philadelphia team. They were the 3rd best team in their own division, somehow made it to the World Series. They avoided the Dodgers and the NLCS. I just think that Philadelphia is not as great as people think they are. Texas is not a great team, but they can only improve. And, the injuries to the Phillies, that's 2 big bats out of their lineup. And now they do have Trey Turner. They picked up in the offseason, but still, I think Texas grabs the opener coming up on Thursday against Philadelphia. So let's take the Rangers as our first best bet, Joe.
Rangers, yes, spending a lot of money, aren't they? Okay, your next bet is a bet that I don't appreciate one bit. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, I am fading your Toronto Blue Jays coming up in the opener. I have a lot of respect for the Blue Jays. I think that they will do a lot of great things this year, but I'm going to take the St. Louis Cardinals coming up on Thursday against Toronto, another interleague matchup. And the Cardinals, who, again, they return the NL MVP in Paul Goldschmidt. They have Nolan Arenado. Yadi Molina retired, but now they bring in Wilson Contreras from the Cubs. Miles Michaelis starts for St. Louis. He's been a pretty good dog. Understandably, this game is kind of around that pick-em range, so it's not like Toronto is a heavy favorite by any stretch. But also Alek Manoah of the Blue Jays. A lot of Cy Young hype for him going into this year, along with Garrett Cole, along with Jacob deGrom in the American League. Verlander's gone now to the Mets, so he's out of that mix. But Toronto's got a really good lineup. They have a really good pitching staff, but I think in this spot going to St. Louis, the Cardinals always an underappreciated team. They won the NL Central last year. They had a bad inning against Philadelphia in the first game of that playoff series. They had the Phillies dead to rights in that best of 3. They're about to win that one, the first game, and go up 1-0. Philadelphia blew up in that 9th inning, and things kind of went sideways for the Cardinals in that series. So we'll see what St. Louis has starting this season. Very winnable division in the NL Central, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think St. Louis will win this opener against Toronto coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, not a bad number, to be fair, there for the Cardinals playing at home. So no MLB for me today, but I'm going to have a couple spots here tomorrow. Got to find some way to fade Patrick Corbin. Right, so we're waiting for first 5 and props to open up a little bit. Maybe Braves first 5 team total. See what type of walk props open up as well. You guys know I love them, so I will be all over the opening day betting board there for you guys tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube right now or watching the replay, do me a favor. You know the drill here. Boom. There's a like button right down there. Boom. There's a subscribe button right down there as well. If you hit the like button, it lets me know that you enjoy the program. If you have any suggestions for us here on the show, don't be scared. Drop them down there in the comments section. Also, if you have any bets that you like for tonight or opening day or Major League Baseball futures, drop them down there in the comments section as well. Or if you're in the live chat, let us know what you like. Okay, so if you're looking to get some bets in, if you're looking to open up a new sports book, maybe I recommend getting your action in over at BetMGM, the king of sports books. It's never been easier to bet with confidence. That's because the king of sports books is giving you a can't miss first bet offer with up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. Sign up with BetMGM using the promo code VIBONUS. You get a first bet offer of up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets. If you don't win, that's VI bonus, all one word, no spaces. For a first bet offer up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets. If you don't win, just use that code VI bonus. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. You must be 21 years or older to wager. Offer is for new customers only. BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Yeah. Indeed. Opening day. We got a lot going on here, Kevin. Final Four, WrestleMania. Did you watch wrestling growing up, Kevin?
No.
Not a wrestling guy. If you needed to answer the question who your favorite wrestler is, what would the answer be?
Thunderlips.
That's bullshit.
I thought you would like that.
Speaking of which, I do like that. I appreciate the reference. I like the Rocky movies. I was out to Creed 3 over the weekend, which the Chasing That Paper audience knows all about. I was pretty disappointed to learn, though, producer Tito, who fancies himself as a cultured gentleman when it comes to multimedia, he casually informs me that he's never seen a Rocky movie or a Creed movie. He's supposed to be a sports fan.
Disappointing.
I thought he's a good guy, but I thought less of him when he told me that. He's never seen a Rocky movie? He's never seen a Creed movie? I know he's a lot younger than me and you. Still, those are legendary films. Out of his mind here. Okay, so let's talk a little baseball here. So we've been doing these team betting previews. We've mainly been focusing on the teams towards the top of the odds board, but let's do one more team. This is not a team that's near the top of the odds board. It is a popular club, though. Bit intriguing coming into 2023. The team of which I am speaking is the Chicago Cubs. Let's take a look at their futures odds heading into 2023 here. 90-1 to win the World Series. Do not waste your money. 45-1 to win the National League. I don't think so. It's kind of interesting here, though. Pretty shallow division here. The NL Central, plus 650. That's not a bad underdog bet. I think that division could be wide open. Over-under wins, which I'm going to get to momentarily, set at 77.5. And to get into the playoffs, plus 360. No, minus 140. I think if you're going to bet them to get into the playoffs, you're better off betting them to win the NL Central. You get that much better number, plus 650. Going to be a lot of competition for that wild card there. So I don't see two teams from that division getting in. So take a look at the Cubs here last season, Kevin. 74-88. This is a team that's maybe in the middle of a rebuild. Maybe. Just some god-awful, ugly numbers here for the Cubs last season. 22nd in runs, the 6th most strikeouts, 20th in staff ERA. However, I think maybe they're getting ready to load up again. This isn't a small market club who's looking at a decade-long, never-ending rebuild. I think they're getting ready to load up. They tore it all down in 2021. They got rid of a lot of their talent, their aging talent, guys at the tail end of their prime are out of it. The Baez's and the Rizzos and the Bryants. Loaded up with young talent. So I think that the future is bright for the Cubs. I think that they have a potential to be maybe a bit of a surprising team here in 2023. Your immediate outlook for the Cubs, you think they could surprise, or is it a year or two too soon?
I think they could be better. I mean, like you said, this was a team that for a while they had the stalwarts. They had the guys that you recognize with this team, and then they traded them away, and you don't know who anybody was in this team anymore. And the one good thing for them, Joe, is this division where you don't have the Dodgers, you don't have the Braves, you don't have a team like that is going to win it. Milwaukee and St. Louis are ahead of them, but they're not great teams by any stretch. They're better than the Cubs, but they're not, one of these elite teams. And then you have Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, who are not very good at all, that are on your level, maybe worse than the Cubs. So I think Chicago, they could be turning the corner. They had some nice moves. We'll talk about it a little bit in the offseason, at least to somewhat bolster the team and give the fans a little bit of hope. But I think Chicago is on the right track. But if you say playoffs, like that playoff prop, when you look at, are they a top 6 team in the National League? No, they are not there yet. But every year we always see one or two teams that comes out of nowhere that all of a sudden now win somewhere in the 80s, and they're in the wild card discussion in August and September. Chicago could be one of those teams, but my hopes aren't high, but I do not think they're going backwards by any stretch.
Okay, so let's get into our favorite season-long bets here for the Chicago Cubs. Mine is a pretty simple one. Their win total set at 77.5 here for the Chicago Cubs. I absolutely love the over on this number. So let's break this down here. So Cubs over 77.5 wins. Great finish to 2022 for Chicago. 39-31 in the second half of the season. They finished with 74 wins. I think a 4-win improvement is very realistic here. You look at that division they play in. This is a cupcake division. Probably the worst division in baseball. The two teams ahead of them, the Brewers and the Cardinals, each have a ton of holes. No one should be shocked if Chicago leapfrogs either one of those teams. And is the rebuild ahead of schedule? I think it might be just a little bit. This is a team that went to the playoffs in 5 of 6 seasons before tearing it all down in 2021. As a result of that, though, they added a ton of young talent that they're now combining with a group of veterans that have a lot of upside, headlined by Dansby Swanson. 78 wins, very doable, I think, for the Cubs here in 2023. Kevin, your favorite bet for the Cubs as we head into 2023?
Well, for Chicago, there was a prop, the old NL Central trifecta, and who would finish in the top 3 of the division, and I'm including the Cubs in that, so that's going to be my bet. And I believe that Milwaukee will be first, St. Louis second, Chicago third. And I know that it's not a great payout, but sometimes you only get to win on 20 and 30 and 40 to 1 bets. So this is at 7 to 2 odds at plus 350. Now, as far as the bottom 3 of this division, Chicago, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh, I like the Cubs out of those 3. So I'm going to throw those other 2 teams out and think that, all right, the Cubs can be a top 3 team in this division. I know it's only 5 teams, but still. But I don't think Chicago is ready to pass Milwaukee or St. Louis. Now, would I be shocked if they did? No, I wouldn't. Nothing would shock me anymore, unless the A's won the AL West. That would be shocking. But I think that Chicago is still behind Milwaukee and St. Louis, but they are good enough to be a third-place team, which they were last year. They're good enough to be a third-place team again in this division. And you mentioned Dansby Swanson leaving the Braves and going to the Cubs. Also, I don't know how much Eric Hosmer has left, after last year. I mean, he was in San Diego, then he went to Boston, and he bounced around. But Eric Hosmer, it's a nice veteran to have. Also, Cody Bellinger, who was an MVP a while ago, and he had that shoulder injury in the World Series when he celebrated, and he ripped up his shoulder, and he hasn't been the same player since. Even Trey Mancini, who was in Baltimore, then went to Houston, and then signed with the Cubs in the offseason. He's a good hitter. You have him as a DH. They picked up Jameson Taillon as well, who spent time with the Yankees. So I think that they're getting pieces. They may not be superstars, but they're getting pieces. Maybe some guys past their prime. But Chicago will be competitive enough to be close to that 80-win plateau, but they're still a little behind the Brewers and the Cardinals. I like Milwaukee a little better than St. Louis because of Milwaukee's starting pitching. Maybe the Cardinals have a better lineup, but I think it's going to end with Milwaukee, St. Louis, Chicago as the top 3. So that's my best Cubs bet for the season, Joe.
Best Cubs bet for the season. Okay, so we have another intriguing team in Chicago, the White Sox. Yes, Vegas Insider Twitter followers, which Chicago baseball team should fans be most excited about? I think for this season, the obvious answer is yes, the White Sox. I would argue that the Cubs have the better farm system, though, so maybe over the next 5-10 years, you should be more excited about the Chicago Cubs. But I think a lot should be expected for the White Sox. They were my dark horse to win the World Series, if you recall, 35-1. Tony La Russa out the door. They were just ravaged by injuries last season. They're in a relatively light division there too, in the NL Central. So, Kevin, if you lived in Chicago and you needed to invest in season tickets for either of these teams for the next 5 seasons, which team are you picking?
I'd still take the Cubs. Better atmosphere at Wrigley than if I have to go to Wrigley or guaranteed rate field, whatever it's called now, for 5 straight seasons. Give me Wrigley Field. I'm going to take that. I don't care if the Cubs are much worse than the White Sox. Give me the Cubs on that one.
Okay, so what about which team do you think has the brighter future here? Not just for this season. I think the answer to that is obvious. All you have to do is look at the odds board. The White Sox much higher than the Cubs. But would you agree that the Cubs have a bit of a brighter future than the White Sox?
It's a hard one because, like you said, the White Sox can win the AL Central this year. It's not crazy to think that. And their manager is going to be awake during the games. So that's another positive as opposed to before with Tony La Russa. But they lost Jose Abreu to the Astros, which I found kind of interesting that he would go there, considering Abreu had won an MVP in Chicago and was a cornerstone of that team. But they're still really good players in that White Sox lineup. They have obviously a much better pitching staff than the Cubs right now. But the White Sox just have to find a way to stay healthy and just keep it together. In the American League, they can make a run. And it's not just to win the Central. They can make a run if they had to face the Yankees or the Blue Jays or the Astros, or some lose the Astros a few years ago in the playoffs. But I think they can do it if they can just stay healthy. Lance Lynn, he's a horse. Giolito, if he keeps it together, he's a pretty good pitcher. They have Dylan Cease, who went on that great run last year. So Chicago, the White Sox, they have definitely a lot of really good pieces. I'd be more excited even for the next 5 years for the White Sox more so than the Cubs. The Cubs, for the discussion on this show, yes, they'll be better, but also there's a lot of has-beens that they picked up as well. You see what they have left in the tank, where the White Sox still have quality players with stuff left in the tank.
Yeah, a lot of good young players there for the White Sox as well. No doubt about it. Cannot wait until opening day. Okay, let me tell you guys a little bit about the Vegas Insider app before I tell you about one of my best sports ideas ever. So the Vegas Insider app gives you all the major sports betting odds at your fingertips, along with picks and expert breakdowns. You can shop for the best odds, find props, features, and plenty more with the app. If you want more Vegas Insider content like our shows, videos, and podcasts, you can find it all on the app in the media section. Download the Vegas Insider app on Apple or Android. Bet better with the Vegas Insider app. So, Kevin, I want to run an idea by you. I have many great ideas, several awful ones as well, according to the people on the internet. But a lot of different stuff being kicked around in NFL meetings right now. And they announced yesterday, the NFL announced that teams can now have 2 Thursday night football games per season. Limit was 1, and now that has changed. Now, they're not going to be flexing teams into Thursday night. I know they had discussed that. And the players absolutely hate the Thursday night games, and we already saw them add an additional game to the regular season here recently. And one of my best ideas in all of sports is that each team in the NFL should have 2 bye weeks. And this is win, 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 win for everybody. The owners, the TV networks, the players, us as fans as well. We're going to get an extra week of regular season in the NFL. That would be absolutely fantastic. You know, these guys are getting injured all the time. They're flying them all over the place to play these games. Germany, they got them playing on short rest Thursday night. Some teams will be playing 2 Thursday nighters in a season. And you look at this for the TV networks. This is an extra week of NFL football that they can sell commercials for, get all that ad money. Just more money for everyone to be made. The players can more time to rest up their injuries. I think it would result in a better product as well. And for us fans, hey, we're sitting here on Sundays. We got no idea what to do with ourselves. We have an extra week of regular season football. What do you think of that idea?
I was smiling when you were talking about some of the scenarios that, like, this is what the NFL has become. We're playing more Thursday night games, more games in general. We're going to Germany. We're going to all these other countries to play, and it's kind of like to the players, shut up and just take it. And it's amazing what the NFL does. They've made so much money and they just don't stop. Let's go to Prime now and have the games on Prime on Thursday nights. And they need to do something to keep these players, I don't want to say happy, but at least keep them somewhat sane, considering, adding these Thursday night games, which I feel like in theory a long time ago was a good idea. I'm not too hot on it anymore. I'm really not. That these players, they don't want to play in the Thursday night game, and they need to find a way to make these players, make them, I don't want to say more happy with what's going on, but you're adding an extra game, which I thought was totally, I don't want to say meaningless, but I thought there was no reason behind it. Keep it at 16 games. I feel like they're ruining the NFL a little bit. I don't think more is better at all. I think they need to go back to what it was, 16 games, 17 weeks total. Now we're doing more bye weeks, stretching it out. I'm just not a big fan of what they did with that. I think the 16 games was more than enough.
So a big thing, if you add an extra week to the regular season by giving each team a second bye, would mean that the Super Bowl would be pushed back an additional week. And what is that? That is a holiday weekend in the United States of America. A lot of people, I've hearing people push for the Super Bowl to be played on a Saturday night. I'd be in favor of that. It's
100%.
Much more convenient. Yep. It's a Sunday night. It's a work night. People like to get drunk and watch the Super Bowl. They like to stuff their face. They feel like shit in the morning. A lot of us have little kids. It's a school night for the kids. Some of the kids want to stay up and watch the game, but they got to go to bed. I know Sunday is synonymous with the NFL, but I think Saturday could make it a little bit more special. Yeah, so I would absolutely love to see that. It's nice to talk about something NFL related that's not Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson, which we're going to be talking about for the next, probably right up until the draft, you would have to imagine. Okay, guys, it is now time for today's Handicapper Heat Check presented by VegasInsider.com, your home for the best expert picks in the business since 1997. Having a hard time talking today. Scott Rickenbach is on fire, going 5-0 last night and 10-1 across all sports in the last 3 days. Will Rogers had another NBA winner to bring his run to 15-1. I should have tailed his picks last night. He's 15-1 in his last 16. Nick Parsons hit 3 straight NHL winners and has a 5-0 all sports record in the last 2 days. Visit VegasInsider.com/picks for tonight's NBA and NHL best bets. That's your Handicapper Heat Check. Stay hot, betters. Yeah. All right, winding right down here, but before we let you off the hook here, Kevin, what do you have going on at Vegas Insider that Chasing That Paper viewers can check out?
Well, I recently taped my NIT championship video, which will be out a little bit later today, as that will be UAB in North Texas playing tomorrow. So looking forward to that. We went 2-0 in the videos last night with the NIT semifinal game. So we'll see if we can finish it off with another win. And then we have the videos for the Final Four on Saturday. Also, we'll have some baseball plays for Thursday as well. Some of the ones you didn't catch on here for the opener, some more NBA plays. We got a bunch of stuff. So Vegas Insider TV, you can find our best bet videos, Joe.
Opening day. One of my favorite things about baseball season, and I've said this to you before and to the viewers of Chasing That Paper before, just random games going on at all the time. I would love if the NBA and NHL did the occasional weekday afternoon game. You see it on the holidays. Sometimes I think you could do that in the bigger cities and it wouldn't really affect the attendance too much, but you get that with baseball almost every day. We got a nice little taste of that with March Madness. Now we're going to have a full plate of it for the next couple months with Major League Baseball. So super excited about that. I'm also super excited about tomorrow's edition of Chasing That Paper. Very special guest. Gentleman Gilles Gallant from the Action Network will be stopping by. We received a message from Ian that he will not be able to participate in the show tomorrow. He'll be back with us Friday, though, with his favorite Final Four action. So thank you to Kevin for joining us. Thank you for Tito for producing. Thank you, dear viewer, for watching today's show. Best of luck with your bets tonight, unless, of course, you are fading me. And as always, keep chasing that paper. Yeah!